We drove over to the school and had a meeting with the counselors, and it was just so uncomfortable. And their conclusion in that meeting was get them on Adderall.
Is there a doctor?
Just wasn't getting into colleges. And I was like, how can I get into college? Because I wanted to go to college.
Yeah.
When I started my first business, I was in a sales job for a long time still.
Yeah.
And I was just doing it on the side like most people do their side hustles. You know, within 6, 7, 8 months, I was doing 6-figure months. Within a year, I was doing 400K months, 300K months, things like that.
People ask us if we're twins all the time. Like, yeah, maybe we look the same, but we have different skill sets within our business, which kind of meshes really well. And it was always like a natural partnership that was never forced.
And it's like, oh, here we go again. This is exciting. People are telling me I can't do it.
Anything making money, whatever it is, it's just like, it's always like daddy's money, they say. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Ron Apke. Today, we are with Daniel Apke, and we are going to be talking about Daniel's story as a serial entrepreneur to where you are today, Dan. It's going to be essentially me interviewing him. Obviously, a lot of these episodes, we have us two discussing a topic. Today, it's going to be talking more about Daniel's story. I think you can learn a lot from his story. I think seeing where he was as a kid, even where he was as a kid to where he is today and everything in between. But, Dan, I think this is good that we're doing this. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm excited to get into it, and we're going to have the same style with Ron as well, because we have similar journeys than anyone who's really listening. We were no different than anyone listening. We had the same exact story, childhood, obstacles, things in our lives. You know, we weren't in a spot of freedom before, and we both achieved the freedom we were looking for. So I think anyone can get something from these stories. That's
one of the YouTube comments we always get is whenever we're talking about anything making money, whatever it is, it's just like, it's always like daddy's money, they say. That's a hot YouTube topic, I guess to say when people...
Yeah, people are just looking to troll online. It's not a big deal, but it's, we didn't come from money or anything crazy like that. So it's not, that's not an excuse for anyone.
So let's get started when you were young, Dan. Let's just go, like, how were you as a student? What was life like growing up? I know you've talked before about struggles in school, stuff like that, but let's get into like, what were you like as a kid growing up? What were your interests, everything like that?
Yeah, no, I grew up playing a ton of sports. I was really, really competitive with sports. I played 3 sports growing up at every single season.
Yep.
Our dad made us play sports, just kept us busy. We had 3 brothers, so it was me, Ron, and our other brother, Mike, who's also in the community, and a lot of you know him if you're in the community as well. But sports was a huge part of our childhood, you know, playing out back, playing football, playing, you know, street hockey, basketball, things like that we loved to do. And then we had sporting events every single season, so we were always constantly at practice and things like that. That was a huge part of our life. And in the summers, we'd also do, you know, sporting camps and stuff. So when I look at my childhood, I just think a lot about like me at practice or, you know, me at a basketball game or something like that. That was a huge, huge part of my childhood. But we grew up with 3 brothers, so we were constantly playing other sports in the house and competitive with each other and playing video games together. And that's just kind of a snippet at my childhood in general.
Yeah. What about school? Like how did you fare in school? Or tell the people how you fared in school as far as, I know it became difficult at some point. Like, was it difficult always from the beginning school, or what was kind of your mental state with that?
No, at the beginning, I actually was really good at school, and I always wanted to be like the smartest person in the class. And I was good like from first grade to fourth grade or third grade, first grade to third grade. And early on, I was good in school, I think, and I liked it, and it was like a social thing for me because school back then was more creative.
Yeah.
You were drawing stuff and painting on the walls and putting your handprints on, you know, chalk and doing things outside. And there was a lot of outdoor time.
Stimulating.
Yeah, a lot of stimulating things. And then you get older, and it's just like you're sitting in a classroom listening to someone on a chalkboard talk. And that I didn't do well in school with that type of teaching in general. It's not that it was difficult for me, it's that sitting in class was difficult for me. And I just didn't like it at all. And I got bored, and I just wouldn't listen to really anything at all. And I'd be kind of in my own head, in my own world. And it created a ton of boredom for me. And I just didn't get good grades.
Yeah, I think that's like kids getting, and when I was a school teacher, that's the thing. Like the kids that create issues are just bored. A lot of times they're smart as crap, and they're really, really smart kids, but they just are troublemakers because they are so bored in school and it's not stimulating for them, and that's not their personality type. Didn't they try to put you on medicine?
Yeah, they did put me on medicine.
Oh, they did?
I was on it for a week.
I didn't know that.
But that was when I got older.
Yeah.
Like last year. No, I'm just kidding. But that was that was when I was in high school. They ended up putting me. Well, they tried like when I was really, really young to put me on ADD, like Adderall and stuff. And my dad was very against it. My mom was for it, and my mom wanted it because we had a meeting in 5th grade with my teachers and the principals and the counselors. and me and
You're
dad
one of
and
those
mom.
kids.
And we had the whole like school at this meeting, and it was just me. And I remember like it was so uncomfortable. I remember the whole morning, like just waking. We had to get there early. It was before school, so I woke up. I had to put my clothes on, and I got in the car with mom and dad, our parents, and we drove over to the school and had a meeting with the counselors and all this stuff. And it was like, it was just so uncomfortable. I just felt like, I don't even know the feeling, but it was really, really weird. And their conclusion in that meeting was get them on Adderall. No joke. And my dad was like, we're not getting them on Adderall. What they ended up doing,
Was there a doctor?
I don't know if the counselors are or
Yeah.
not, but that was their recommendation. But what they ended up doing instead of getting me on Adderall, because my dad wasn't going to let me get on it, especially at that age where we're just, I wasn't getting in trouble with like doing anything crazy. I was just getting in trouble doing, normal kid stuff, getting in fights, slamming lockers, riding on stuff on the roofs, things like that. Just nothing like actually harming.
Yeah.
Just kid stuff, fires, outbacks, explode, like pyro stuff, fires and things like that. But like all the normal kid stuff, just from boredom, I think. And then what they ended up doing was just taking my locker privilege, because that's where I was getting in a lot of trouble in the hall. So they banned my hall privilege essentially. So then I even got more bored and more bored. But yeah, they tried to get me on it. And then in high school, I was having the same issues and that's when I got bad grades too, like in junior high and high school. And then they're like, all right, let's try out Adderall. And I took it and I was like a zombie. I was like, I'm not even hungry. I love food and I'm not hungry and I'm like a zombie. I was on it for just a few days, I think, or a week or something.
So if it wasn't for sports, like, because sports, a lot of kids like are saved by sports. Like if it wasn't for sports, would you have flunked out? Would you can you flunk out of high school? I don't even know if you can. I assume the grade issue, like you were skating by to be able to play sports.
Yeah, I think sports was a big part of it. And also school wasn't really hard to me. It was just boring. So I knew what to do to get by.
Yeah.
Like I could get C's.
Yeah.
And I could get C's like without them, because I knew to just do the homework. I knew if I did the homework, I could get at least C's. So I would do the minimum, and then I'd do really, really bad on test.
Yeah.
That was my thing, like because I wouldn't pay attention in class or study for them. So like I would do horrible on test, and I have so many memories of me sitting there in a classroom, and everyone's taking their test and filling in their little bubbles, and I'm sitting there and I have no idea what anything is on the paper in certain subjects. Math I could always skate by and do decent in science and things like that, but there are certain things, like I have so many memories of me as a kid, no idea to any of these answers at all. Guess. And this sounds weird, but like I remember in like 9th and 10th grade, I would try to like sit there and absorb the energy of the room to try to get the answers, because I was just guessing, and I was like trying to, I was hoping
don't
for
be grounded.
Yeah.
That's what it's like. It was from the outside looking in, like I don't remember that much. I remember like mom and dad were always like, why did you get a D on that? Why did you get I remember like those things, and then grounding and stuff like that. But what was kind of, as far as mom and dad doing that, is you think they handled it pretty well? Because you were different than Michael and myself in terms of just school in general. And you were I don't want to say a project, but it was more effort from them to like get you to at least get through school.
Yeah, they drew a line somewhere, but they were also really good at letting me be myself. I think they weren't ever like strict on what I would do outside of there. They weren't like really checking in on me all the time and what I was doing. They let me be like a kid and let me run around, and we'd be doing all kinds of stuff with my friends outside, and they just kind of let a lot of the stuff be. In school, I don't know, they were pretty laid back with it, honestly. Like they weren't strict parents on me at all. And I think that helped me, because I saw a lot of my friends that had strict parents got to college.
Yep.
And then they kind of blew up. I was like, I already been doing this in high school. It was no different to go to college, really, in general. And I think they did a really good job of, yes, they were there parenting, of course. And I got in trouble at times. But they had a line, and a lot of the stuff was okay with what I was doing. And they didn't know, obviously, a lot of what I was doing either. But in general, they were really good parents from being hands off in that approach. They were not overly strict at all, which I think was really good, because people like me, I've seen it. They have such strict parents, and they go to college and then they start partying and taking Xanax and all this stuff, and they become zombies, and then they become drug addicts.
Yeah.
I saw that with so many kids.
Yeah. It makes sense. I was actually on the Uber over here. My driver was talking about like his youngest son's 17. He's like, I don't know if he's going to graduate. He's like, and I just like told him like, people change so much, like between when you're 16 and when you're like 24, 22, like it is such a big difference. And it's crazy to like look back and like no one would look at you, or no one who's listening to this prior to what we say is like going to be like, oh, that kid probably struggled in school with everything like that. Cause you're doing what you want to do now. And I think that's the biggest thing. Let's talk about your like first entrepreneurship venture. Do you remember that? What was it? Go back as far as you want.
Yeah, for those who are wondering too, after high school, I did go to university also. So because people always ask like college dropout, you see the entrepreneurs, a lot of them are like the things you see online. It's like, oh, I dropped out of college and now I'm here and all that stuff. I did graduate. I did have a good experience in college. I did all the traditional college stuff. I didn't get into college though. That was my thing.
You did go to Israel, so you can touch base on that a little bit. You went to
I went to Israel for a year before going to college. The main reason because of that was I just wasn't getting into colleges. And I was like, how can I get into college? Because I wanted to go to college.
Yeah.
It's what everyone was doing. It seemed fun. It seemed like it would get me to where I wanted to be or help me in that direction at least. And I did want to go to college. I was never really debating not going to college, to be honest. So I went to Israel because they gave me college credits in the United States too that would transfer. So I got in it was a university that's based in the U.S., but they have a branch over there. And I got in, I went over there and I took classes and I did really good because I wanted to prove that I could do well and then transfer to university over here, college over here. And that's what I did because they took my 30 credits, like a whole traditional freshman year. I got the whole year done and they took the credits and used me as a transfer to get me in. So that's kind of what I did to help get in. But I also traveled over there. I interned. I did a ton of stuff. It was awesome. I loved it. I loved traveling. I loved doing all that stuff. And it really set me, I mean, you're 8,000 miles away from home with knowing very, very little people. And it was a good experience. I think you're thrown out there and you're forced to just make it work.
Is that what kind of like helped you? Because you did well after that in typical university over here. Is that your biggest growth year, you think? Like you're 29 years old now. But from, I guess, 16 to 29, was that like what kind of built you into what you are today?
I think so, definitely. There's multiple years I had where every year I tried to grow tremendously, but that year in particular, I had an open mind as it was, just because I knew I didn't want to go do what everyone else was. Like if I went to college back home, I was like, I want to go far, I want to explore, I want to meet different kinds of people. But that took it to the whole nother level because through all these experiences, we had 80 different countries in the program I was on, out of 200 kids, everywhere from Germany, South Africa, Ireland, Australia. My roommates I had a German roommate, I had a South African roommate, I had an Australian roommate, and we're all coming together as one community. Like it was cool to see all the different cultures. It really opened up your mind on everything, and then all the different foods and traveling and just being out there alone. You want to grow up, send someone out somewhere like that alone for that was a whole year, and it forces you to kind of learn about yourself and make, you have to survive and you're going to live up to the expectations.
Yeah. I mean, you got to be an adult. You're relying on yourself. And like you said, 8,000 miles away, it's not a quick freaking drive home or a quick flight home. It's expensive and a long, long flight home if you do come home. But that's awesome. So going from that, Dan, is like, so you went to university, did well in university, graduated. Is your first entrepreneurship before you graduated from Ohio University? What was that like?
No, so I graduated, then I moved to Columbus, Ohio for a company called Palmer Donovan, and I was in sales there. And my first, I guess you can call it entrepreneurship, was, we were flipping bit FTA stuff for a little bit. That's where I kind of got the feeling of making money on the side a little bit more. I had some things when I was younger where we would do, but nothing crazy. And then we got, when I was working at Palmer Donovan, we started flipping different auction products and putting it on eBay and doing that stuff. But that was kind of my first entrepreneurship journey. And really quickly, the same year I graduated college, we bought our first salon.
Yep.
That was right at the end of the year that year. So it was right after we graduated, we bought a salon in Cincinnati, and it was a salon on the bottom floor, apartments on top. If you follow us, you've heard us talk about that. But that was where I was like, all right, this real estate thing's really cool.
Yeah. So you got into real estate from there. And then, I mean, doing the bid FTA, flipping stuff, it was a big learning experience, Dan. Like, we learned a lot from that. Like, obviously, we weren't making crazy money or anything, but we had some success, and then you just kind of learn and grow from there. Like 10, 15 years from now, we might look at this business as being like a small, like you just keep on growing and building on your skill sets.
Right.
So you obviously I don't know what your first entrepreneurship thing was in terms of after the real estate, but you got into drop shipping, you got into Kindle publishing, you wrote some love novels.
Got
Talk about
by JJ Watt almost.
Yeah, you got JJ Watts lawyers reaching out. What was that like? Were you just like looking for the thing, or were you trying a bunch of things, or were
Oh,
you
I was
trying?
desperately looking. Yeah, I was getting.
You were doing a sales job, so you were in
I was doing a sales job, and when I started my first business, I was in a sales job for a long time still. And I was just doing it on the side like most people do their side hustles. If you're flipping houses, flipping land, you're running businesses, a lot of times you have a 9 to 5 for the first while. That's completely normal. I was able to build up a multi-million-dollar businesses with having a 9 to 5 as well, which is very possible. But yeah, my first job was I was looking for something. I was driving so much for my 9 to 5, and I didn't mind it, honestly. I liked my 9 to 5, but I was like, I always knew I wanted to do more. Like I wanted to be big. I just had a vision of just being like I don't even know, having businesses, building something huge. And I always was like, I can build something big, and I feel better than this almost. And I was always looking for a way out of that job. And I hope that doesn't sound wrong, but it was also the freedom that came along with it, And I got into outside sales because there's so much freedom with that too. Yeah, I was working hard and stuff, but I was making my own schedule, and I was talking to my manager a lot, but it was a great relationship, and there was just so much freedom from that perspective, and I was making decent money and stuff too at that time. But yeah, I was just looking really, really hard for my next venture, and I was driving and I was listening to podcasts, and I came across high ticket drop shipping, which is pretty much, if you guys aren't familiar with drop shipping, traditional drop shipping, you're bringing in product from China. That's why I don't like to call it even drop shipping. It's more of an e-commerce brand. What I did, I was partnering with U.S. suppliers, so like people who own these U.S. manufacturing in a niche. It was an electric bike niche, and I would partner with them, and I was marketing their product for them, essentially in a partnership and as a nationwide distributor. Some companies I wasn't nationwide; I was state by state. Most I was nationwide, but that's essentially what was my first business, and I saw the opportunities there. It was a hard start. No one thought it would work. I kind of knew it would work. I don't know. There's just something in the back of my head. I knew it would work. So I kept pushing, and it paid off. And within 6, 7, 8 months, I was doing 6-figure months. Within a year, I was doing 400K months, 300K months, things like that. And then I was like, we got to exit. But while doing that, Ron, I was opening up other businesses because I saw this. I was like, this business thing's fun. It's not that hard. I'm making decent money now on the side. And keep in mind, I said I was making decent money with my sales job. It wasn't anything crazy. I mean, I started out at $65,000 and kind of raised from there as my sales pipeline grew, but I wasn't making like crazy 6 figures or anything at all. So I had to save, I had to live cheap, and I did all that to allow me to help invest a little bit in these businesses too.
That makes a lot of sense. What was kind of your mindset going into that? Was it just like you knew you wanted to get out of your sales job, but what was your driving factor? Because you talk about like, and a lot of people listening, like they're trying to get out of something or trying to create more freedom, and like you got to work extra hours, like you got to put in some work effort. Like, what was your driving factor?
I liked it. I didn't mind the extra work. I was like, if this is going to get me to where I want, it was never a debate in my mind. Like if I'm going to put in the work or not, like that just wasn't a problem at all to me. I liked it. Like I always thought business was kind of cool. But there's obviously days that I don't want to work, and a lot of things happen, and there's obstacles, and there's times you want to quit. It wasn't easy at all. It was very, very difficult. I was waking up super early, 5 a.m. type stuff, and going to bed late and working till then. But I enjoyed the process. I would go to I would go to the coffee shop every single Saturday and Sunday just about, and I'd open up my laptop and I'd do some work. And I was doing a lot of low level stuff like entering in variables and Shopify and all this different stuff because I didn't have any employees. It was just me doing it. And then I hired my first virtual assistant, got rid of a lot of those tasks, really focused on ads, really focused on getting good suppliers and partners and things like that. But yeah, it was really, really hard work. But at the same time, the freedom that I was looking for was well worth that sacrifice.
Yeah. And you mentioned a lot of people like not believing in it working. Talk about talk about why you don't have a partner for one. And then like that mindset of a bunch of people, not necessarily saying directly like this isn't going to work, but like just you know the feeling like as far as like people not believing.
It's the same feeling as with like going back to school and people not believing I could do anything.
Yeah.
Same exact feeling. It's like you're going to prove them wrong, and I knew I was going to the whole time. But yeah, no one really believed. They didn't understand the business. I don't know if they didn't believe in me, whatever it was. I didn't care. I just wanted to prove them wrong. And that was like a huge motivation behind me. I love to prove people wrong, probably stemming from the childhood of not doing good in school and having principal meetings over and over and over again. But I'd love to prove people wrong, and I knew it was going to work. People would always tell me it's not going to work, or they'd say you need help. And they'd look at the site and be like, yeah, this isn't going to work, and all this different stuff. And it happened over and over and over again. but it's a part of life. You know, you're going to let that stop you from achieving what you want. And I just wasn't going to let that happen. I thought the reward of the freedom and the reward of everything else that comes with that is worth a sacrifice. And I'm a big Stoic philosopher. I wasn't back then, but I think the worst thing that can happen is not that bad, almost always. And just having that philosophy, it's a learning experience at the worst case, but I thought it was going to work and I was going to make it work.
Yeah. So you asked a bunch of people to be your partner, correct? Or I don't know if it's a bunch, but talk about that situation.
Yeah, I asked our brother. I asked a few other people, and I looked for a lot, and everyone said no, which is fine. It's a good thing they said no. I sold that business for 7 figures and made 7 figures off of it, and it was making good net profit every single year. So it worked out in my favor, I think, because you never know how partnerships are 50-50. You never know how they're going to be. They're hard. I didn't know a lot back then either. In terms of business, you know, I was starting fresh. I didn't know anything. And you just have to have that learning mentality. But yeah, I asked multiple people and everyone said no. But I was going to move forward no matter what. You know, I started the process. I actually got a supplier like to test it out. I was calling electric bike companies saying I have a company when I really didn't have a company yet, just to see if I can get it. And a guy sent me a term sheet. I was looking at the margins. I was like, all right, buy for $1,800. Oh, I can list this for $4,400. It's like, shit, I need to sell one of these. You tell me I can't sell one of these and make a month, you know, $2,000 a month. I wasn't aware of ad spend and all that stuff as much yet. But like when I saw that term sheet before having it, his name was Frank. He was up in New York with an electric bike company. Called him on the phone, had that conversation. But when I saw that term sheet, I was like, wow, we can make some serious money here. I just need to sell this $4,000 product. It's a nice bike and I'm getting it for $2,000.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean those margins. That's what I like about high ticket drop shipping, and it's some markets I'm sure have got oversaturated. If you guys have looked into it a little bit, but there's still opportunity in your company that you had and sold is still running.
Yeah.
So you kind of overlap a little bit when you started getting into land investing. Talk about when you got into land investing, when we became partners in that, and then like that kind of overlaps with selling your company as well.
Yeah, and I had plans to sell it because I always knew I wanted to exit the company, so I was building it to exit, and I had employees and I was training employees. I was putting a lot of time on that side of the business, and to be honest, like I could go away from that company for a while and it would run perfectly fine. So that was not like that one company wasn't taking much time to grow. It took a little bit, but to just sit and float, like it wasn't taking much time out of my day. No, I didn't really have to do much at all, which was nice. So I got it to be that, and I always knew I wanted to sell it, and I needed to have employees and processes and email lists, and Klaviyo, and all the different email and the whole business setup. So after setting up that business and multiple others, I was running a lot of businesses. I always knew I wanted to get into land because Mike and Joe Brusca were telling me about it. And that's who I learned drop shipping from. They were mentors of mine. I still talk to them every once in a while. They're great mentors. But Mike and Joe introduced me to land. Yeah. Just the profitability of the business and the opportunities in it. And that's what opened my eyes. And I remember looking at it, and it probably wasn't until a year after that, until I actually called you on the way to a cabin. I was in Ohio, driving to a cabin. I called Ron. I was like, listen, we got to start this. I told him I have the capital. I was like, you can put in the work. I'll put in 20 hours a week. You put in the rest, and we got to get this thing going. That's kind of how I approached it. And then that weekend I was sitting at the cabin. I filed for our LLC and stuff, I think.
Yeah. And it kind of changed as far as that. I ended up selling a ton of stock and stuff like that, where we turned into 50-50 partners pretty much with effort, everything like that.
Yeah.
Money and effort.
Well, I ended up loving it and seeing I was like, I need one deal now to give me $30,000 a month.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So you kind of took on the sales role, and that's a nice thing about our partnership was like, we have different skill sets. Like people ask us if we're twins all the time. Like, yeah, maybe we look the same, but we have different skill sets within our business, which kind of meshes really well. And it was always like a natural partnership that was never forced.
Right, exactly. And I saw that opportunity. I don't know. I don't think I asked anyone else for land to do land with me, but I was thinking like it was on the back of my head for a long time, and I was just waiting for the right opportunity. And Ron moved from Ohio to Charleston, and he was a basketball coach, so it wasn't the right time for a long time. But then he was starting to look for money and stuff, and I think I saw that subconsciously, and I just thought it would be a good fit. And Ron was answering. I mean, we're going to do a separate interview with him, and we'll get into all the weeds with how your side of the story looked.
Yeah, yeah, it was a fun time. Like looking back, you always look back at those like grinding times when like your motivation was. I don't know, motivations change over time for sure. And you're doing little things, but it feels big at the time.
Yeah, it does.
And every little deal, like it's an emotional roller coaster at first.
In your mind, like you're gonna make it happen too.
Uh-huh.
You like remember that feeling? That's the same thing it was with my first
Yeah, when you
business.
stopped,
It's
when
just
you
like,
said let's stop sending mail.
I didn't say let's stop sending mail. I said should we pause mail?
We had like there's a big learning curve. Like when we're making adjustments
to say
ourselves.
I never ever said
But
stop.
we like it took
and I said it to put pressure on you too.
yeah. To give you guys a perspective, like we sent 10, 12, 15,000 mailers and very little. Like
More than that.
I'm just saying like our first
We
15,000.
sent 10,000 our first month, didn't we?
Yeah. I mean, we were sending a lot of mail.
But we were trying to figure it out. We were
Yeah.
testing things out. We were sending mail out in Nevada. Like, god dang, we didn't do anything for a while. And then we get our first deal, and it was just 10. We thought we hit a home run. It was 5 for 5, so for 15. We were so happy.
Yeah.
Because that was our first win. You know what I mean? It had trash on it. We got that picture in our office, a big portrait of that
first
land.
property we ever built or bought. But really cool looking back at that. So we obviously we're doing, I don't know, starting off our first year, we probably did 50, 100 deals, growing from there for 3-4 years. And then like,
You grinded though.
I don't remember the conversation, Dan. Oh, 100%. We were grinding. We were answering phone calls whenever, like,
fun.
we were overlapping roles, which is fine at first. Like, if Daniel wasn't calling a lead back, I was texting him, like, Daniel, when are you going to call this lead back? If he doesn't respond to my text within 2 minutes, I'm calling that lead.
Yeah.
Because he was responsible for that part. And, like, we were
needed deals.
grinding.
Yeah.
We were pushing deals. We were forcing deals. My wife was pregnant.
And we knew it was going to work. Keep in mind, when I went to Ron and said, do we need to pause mail? We were in the transition of hiring too, because we just knew it was going to work.
Yeah.
We started hiring before we had deals because we knew we were going to make over $500,000 like in our heads. We're like, it's just going to come eventually.
Yeah, you just look back and I remember every single deal from that beginning time.
Yeah.
Like and you freak out about every deal. Like that's the thing. And if you guys are just like, I always wonder like, okay, is something gonna be wrong with this property? What about this? What about this creek? I remember that Kentucky property with the little creek that we had in the back, the infill lot. We looked at it recently. We were just looking back at it, and yeah, I remember it had a little creek. You just will find reasons to be concerned. Like it's scary when you put out money, but at the same time, like we never had a doubt about it working. Yeah. So going from there, Dan, we did that for a few years. We grew the business. We hired people. We were never, especially you, like you really pushed forward to the hiring part. What were your thoughts on that? Like, and right now we know like hiring, like that's how you grow your businesses. But we were early, like we weren't thinking twice about it. Like, let's pay this person 60 grand, 50 grand, whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. Part of it's having, we grinded so hard for the first 6 months that we understood the business model very well. Like we put in the hours, we were on the phones, we understood, and we could outsource it, and we knew we could outsource it and understand all. I feel like the thing we didn't know the most about then was title, probably, because title has so many issues that come up over the years and you learn over time. But in general, my plan with hiring was just to continue. We just did an episode on outsourcing and buying back your time. It was to buy back our time so we could work. I could stay focused on sales, right, for that first little bit, and then you stay focused on pricing and the data and the marketing stuff. And I think that's the biggest aspect is you're outsourcing the lower stuff that one, you don't want to do, and two, you can get a better ROI with doing higher level stuff.
Yeah, and it's like the way I still today look at it is like, how many deals do I need to do to to pay for this person's entire year? And when we looked at like we're hiring transaction coordinator, 50,000, whatever the situation is, it's like that's 2 deals. That's 2 deals that are averaging 25 grand. And that's still how I look at it today.
And it's never permanent. Like if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
100%.
And you can make adjustments in business.
So going from there, Dan, we obviously got into the education space. Talk a little bit about that in terms of like why we got into Land Investing Online, why we're doing this podcast today. Mm-hmm. Talk about that from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun, and it also helps like seeing other people obtain the freedom they're looking for. Like we've had close people in our networks that have done deals and seen freedom that we have, including our brother. You know what I mean? And that's rewarding to see other people make tremendous amount of money that, you know, off a couple deals or whatever they are from nothing, from no side hustle. And that was the main reason. It comes back to that freedom, just helping others obtain that freedom. Like that's a true thing. It's really, really satisfying and rewarding. We're doing that. And that was kind of the start to Land Investing Online. It's like, I know this stuff so well. I feel like we can help other people do it. Yeah. And we kind of worked from there, and we have other plans going forward. And I love to build a personal brand with the podcast, Instagram, all that stuff as well. And we're not going to end here. There's going to be many more ventures. But right now this is really cool. And we have a tech company coming out soon as well that we're getting into, software for land. It's called the Land Portal. But in general, yeah, we have big plans going forward, and it's about continuing to grow.
Yeah. And I think we're kind of especially, I mean, I think always kind of looking for something to keep you excited. And I think like building an education company, helping other people, seeing other people's like
Aligning with the mission. Yeah.
100%. Like it's all aligning with our mission. And last thing, Dan, before we end this up, like talk about that experience. Like you're building a tech company with overseas people right now. Like you're outsourcing this to overseas people. This is not a little job by any means. This is a $50,000-$100,000 project in terms of building it. Talk about that process. It's a completely new thing for you.
You say 50 to 100,000?
I'm saying 50-100,000 just for a development. Then we have another couple $100,000.
Yeah. It's a lot more than 50 to 100, but
it's a $300,000 project, let's say
minimum. And that's not even considering the next 12
just
months.
To get it launched.
Just to get it up to launch.
Yeah.
And then we have 12-month rolling expenses too. But yeah, that's part of part of flipping so much land. We have the financial freedom to be able to invest in passion projects too, which is really cool. But no, it's been a fun, new, exciting journey because I've never been in tech or anything, and the same exact shit happens. People are going to tell you don't know what you're doing with tech, and it's like, oh, here we go again. This is exciting. People are telling me I can't do it. And that's what drives a lot of it too. But I also see a gap in the industry, and I know I can fill the needs and create more freedom for you guys through this software. And it's been fun. I have a bunch of Ukrainians working on this project. They're highly skilled. It's been a long process. Like we have all the data to all the parcels in the country. We have tons of data on, we have tremendous software. We have good software developers working on things. It's going to be really, really solid tech. But it's been a process because I don't have a tech background. I don't have a development background. Do I need one? No. I feel like this is going to be part of it's the naiveness, I think, is getting us to a better spot because I don't understand what's going on in the background really. Nor do I really care. I just want it to look like this and function like this, and let's get there. And then you kind of figure out a way. When you have a vision for something, it's not, I don't want to say it's not hard to come to life, but you just take step by step by step. You know what I mean? And we got blessed with a really, really good software team too.
Yeah. I mean, we looked for a software team. You looked for a software team and connected well with them. We were 50+% done, and we completely scrapped it.
Was more than 50. It was close.
I mean, we were close to launch, and then I don't want to get into the tech of that, and we completely scrapped it. It wasn't like a long decision that we had either. It's like, this is not good enough.
It wasn't good enough. It's not going to enhance the industry it's not going to move the industry forward to the needle that we need it to move. Would it have functioned? Would it have been profitable? Yeah. But it's like, it was a clear scrap. And we are connected to different APIs, and the data wasn't there and the functionality wasn't there. So we scrapped everything and started from square one. And this was, not that long ago.
Probably a $50,000 hit right there.
I would assume more than 50 because we bought the data, which is 165.
Well, that was, I mean, that's going forward to improving that.
Yeah.
Last thing, Dan, like, what's your advice for people? There's a lot of young people watching, 22-year-old, 24-year-olds who are trying to get into entrepreneurship. And I think a lot of people right now, like in today's age, they like want results so immediately. And your thing that you kept saying this whole episode was like, I just believed. Like, that's all it is. I just believe. But what are your kind of advice for people, whether they're starting in land investing or they're starting a bagel shop? Like, what's your advice for people trying to get into entrepreneurship?
You just got to get comfortable with not knowing things. And I think just understanding, like, you're going to start like embracing knowing nothing almost, because you're going to start, just because you're not there now doesn't mean you can't get there. And you build confidence over step by step by step. So like, if my goal is to build that tech company, okay, let's scratch that. Where do I need to go? Let's get the vision right for this, and let's take steps back. And how do I start? And you learn step by step by step by step. So I think understanding that it's okay to be a beginner, and you're like that. It takes time to understand what's going on, but you need those reps to build, your knowledge base, and it's fine. Just dive in, not knowing anything. Like, it's going to be all right.
It's everything. It takes time. Like, anything takes time. You're not going to go from being skinny to being a jacked bodybuilder in a day. Like, there's steps to going from A to Z. You can't go straight from A to Z.
Right.
Other than that, Dan, this was fun. I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's good for everyone here because we've never done anything like that in terms of really talking about our stories, because we both have very different stories, and we'll have another episode, like Dan said, with more focus on my story and how I got to where we are today. Other than that, guys, if you guys have not already, please hit that subscribe button below. It really helps us spread the word. We put out a ton of YouTube content for you guys to help educate you guys for free. Other than that, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining. As always, thank you for joining. Please do us a huge favor and like and subscribe our YouTube channel and share this with a friend. It really means the world to Ron and I, but more importantly, it could help change the life of someone else. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next episode.